Just a couple of guys, a couple of microphones, and a heck of a lot of know. It's Football on the Know with Jim and Joe.
What they say, it's not the X's and the O's, it's the Jimmys and the Joes.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome once again to another episode of Football on the Know. I am Jim McPhee, and alongside of me is Mr. Joe DeCapita.
What's going on, Noodles? Welcome back for another edition of Football on the Know Show. We are locked and loaded, ready to go here in our studios.
Absolutely.
And as you can tell, we've done a little bit of redecorating. We got a few more things added to the table here. We got a few things
Now we're
behind
getting
us.
busy. We're getting cluttered here.
Now we're starting to look like a real studio here. But yeah,
Changes here and there. First thing was kicking Cody out of the studio.
That was part of the renovations. But you know what I mean? Listen, if you're new to the show, welcome aboard. Welcome to be here. And thanks for joining us. If you could do us a huge favor to help us grow this football community of ours, head over to YouTube, go to our channel, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell to let you guys know when we go live. And of course, you can follow us on Facebook and anywhere you get your podcast. iTunes, Spotify, you name it, drop a follow there. Bring us along for the car ride. Bring us to work. Bring us anywhere that you're about to go to. And listen to Football on the Know and be in the know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and Joe, it's mandatory camps are getting started now.
Yes.
Things are getting busy. So
there's a little bit of wrinkles with that.
Some of that.
The mandatory mini camps. Some guys are unwilling to go. We've heard of Daniel Hunter for the Vikings is refusing to go to mandatory mini camp because he's looking to be traded, and the contract negotiations aren't going too well. So a lot of discrepancies there, and it's that time of year where a lot of these guys that are being tagged that are still possibly working out a deal, they're not going to show up. Until they got some security and some long-term contracts signed off on.
Yeah, absolutely. You hear the rumors of whether they are going to or not and things and what they're tracking. And a lot of it is just, again, guys getting older, guaranteed money here and there on what they think they're worth. Markets are changing constantly. And we'll follow it as we go through camps. But I know you had brought up a thing that's also in the drop about now a couple quarterbacks are going to be followed on the sidelines now and turn into some Netflix series, following their career throughout the season and things like that. And I think that's an interesting topic because we've seen the different changes that's going on with the NFL with the popularity of shows, the HBO show that they have and things, and
like Hard Knocks,
and then they have the other one. There's another one for another streaming service. There was another show, but they keep doing this, adding more cameras to the sidelines, getting a deeper dive into these guys' careers and more personal, and getting you guys, on the sidelines and seeing some more of these guys on the other side.
Yeah, you get to see the personalities that really get a taste of what it's like to maybe be around Patrick Mahomes or Kirk Cousins, which are the two quarterbacks that were nominated for Netflix to start off this series that they're going to do, is follow these quarterbacks around. Maybe you get to see a little bit a peek into their lives, like at home or whatnot. But obviously, it's all going to come down to like what the players want to show, what they don't want to show, and obviously it has to be negotiated and agreed to as far as like how much is going to be displayed. Like we all know that HBO Hard Knocks, like you just mentioned, same deal there. Even though they're covering the team, a specific team, and they're at the practices, they're only at the practices when they're allowed to be. It's not 24/7 access. So same thing, same deal. It's going to be done with Netflix. I feel like they're going to kind of pick and adjust what spots, what they want to show, what they don't want to show. And I think it's going to be very interesting for the viewers, for people that maybe just straight up football fans and want to see the behind closed doors type of look of what Kirk Cousins is like, or Patrick Mahomes, who's like one of the biggest stars right now in the NFL. Follow Patrick Mahomes around, like, what does he do for workouts? Like, maybe they're going to be doing some footage on him working out, talking to his trainer, very little bit, maybe at home, peaks of what home life is like. But most of all, it's going to be directed as like performance and the team, like maybe like week to week, what he's going through, recovery and whatnot, and some of the things that he does for game week.
Yeah, and you can see by the two different stars that they had chosen too. Two different paths right now. You know, Patrick Mahomes right now is the hot commodity. A lot of people still are even claiming he's the next GOAT. But he's the biggest star in the NFL right now. You got to say at least. And so he's already at the upper echelon. You know, he's made it. He's there, and they're following that storyline. Kirk Cousins, on the other hand, he's kind of been that guy who, you know, paid all that money to try and be, you know, the guy who can take the Minnesota Vikings all the way to the top. Has fallen short a little bit, you know, has a great group of guys there along with him because, I mean, you're going to have Justin Jefferson on the other side too as well, and he's a big fan favorite. Mm-hmm. And he's kind of that, you know, blue-collar type of, you know, just trying to fight and get it done, you know. And so he's got a different type of path that they're going to follow, and he's trying to rejuvenate things right here and get things to where he was expected to be for the Vikings, or else, you know, he's got a different placing he might need to go after this. You know what I'm saying? So it's not only an opportunity to get behind the sidelines to see that type of stuff, but it's also a way to showcase your talents or what type of guy you are to other teams, to fans, build your own type of fan base, or like they say, your label, you know, and what
your brand,
that these stars are trying to do.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about all this is they chose Kirk Cousins out of all the quarterbacks. You think it might be Joe Burrow. You think it might be also maybe Josh Allen, who actually became the Madden cover winner.
Yeah.
But Kirk Cousins, out of all the quarterbacks, which is interesting to me, and it also is kind of like they chose Kirk, I believe, because it's his last year, most likely, with the Vikings. Like, most likely scenario is that the Vikings are going to move on from him, find their future quarterback, either it be the draft or some avenue that way. And this might be like, he's not getting any younger either. He's over 30 years old at this point. He's at the end of his contract for the Vikings. So it's like, it's almost like they want to try to catch some fire here. Maybe this could be the year for Kirk Cousins. Maybe he kind of brushes off all the critics in the end and propels his team to not only possibly win the division, but also make a run in the playoffs. Because that's really been what's been worse for Kirk Cousins in his career, is because he's been good enough to have them a winning team, to always be picking in the high 20s of every draft since he's been the quarterback. Mm-hmm. But he hasn't been good enough for the team. And obviously this is a team game, so I'm not putting the whole blame on Kirk Cousins, because there are injury situations, there are performance issues sometimes. But Kirk Cousins, it's the common denominator here. Ever since he's arrived, he's got them good enough. He keeps the ball rolling, but has never been able to capitalize for the Vikings and getting any farther than maybe round one of the playoffs. Possibly, maybe even making the championship game. But it has been so far-fetched that his lack of performance in critical times, in critical points of the games where, all right, you need a first down, you need a touchdown, there's only a minute left, like you got to make something happen. And he's fallen short in that aspect. So maybe that's why they chose him for this season. For the first season for Netflix in their series with the NFL quarterbacks, they went Kirk Cousins because they're hoping that maybe they can catch a little bit of fire in his last potential year with the Vikings.
Right. Like I said, different story paths. I mean,
right.
You know, people might end up be rooting for him. You know what I mean? It's a different thing because everybody likes
got a lot
the
of
underdog
haters, that's for sure.
Like, yeah, exactly. And that's why I think he's trying to even show what he does on the sidelines and what kind of work he might put in and things like that, because we only see the failures, and when we don't, we see him on the airplane with the chains and everything and stuff like that.
Oh my God. So, that's hilarious. I love that. So actually, I love that.
I know, but it's funny that people are just a lot of questions about him, but it should be interesting, and it shows even what the NFL is doing here, you know, tied, and even Netflix, you know, jumping on this whole thing, you know, because they've seen what it's done for HBO also as well. That people tune into this stuff, and you're going to see more of this because also the fact that these other type of football, you know, groups that are out there, the XFL and things like that, they are getting more sideline reporting, more personal things like that on the sides too as well. And they're kind of, the NFL will never come out and tell you this and stuff like that, but they piggyback all this stuff all the time. You know, and that's why they've partnered with the XFL, because now they could officially do it and officially take it from them.
Look at what they've already
work
done
together with it.
We talk about the rule changes.
Oh yeah,
what they've done already with the kickoff,
Mm-hmm.
and if you want to fair catch it behind the 20-yard marker before the goal line, it's a touchback, no matter where you're fair catching it. So that's also something that not is exactly like the XFL or USFL, but they watched how the kickoffs work, and they're within the 10 yards or 20 yards they have to get it to. The players at the 50-yard line aren't allowed to move on the kickoff until the receiver catches the ball, which is interesting. That's one thing. But then the NFL's looking at it like, oh, well, how can we, do something similar, but not exactly the same? And this is what they came up with, was that fair catch rule. So some of and you're right, Jimmy, is that some of those rule changes that the NFL does, sometimes even certain things that the XFL has done in the past or USFL has done, like we've seen sideline. They're on the what are they? Those like sideline motion stands or whatever.
Yeah,
and it's like they're doing reporting while they're on the stands, and they're right on, can see everything on the football field and whatnot. And challenges are becoming a lot more of a big deal in the XFL and USFL, where they're actually, you can challenge just about anything, and it's so quick. And that's been the problem for the NFL, is like have a hard time getting things done fast. It takes them like 10, 15 minutes to figure out if the challenge is good or not. Where in the other leagues, it takes them 2 minutes, maybe less. They watch the play 2-3 times and they're like, oh, well, this is the call. And that's it. And hopefully the NFL can learn something by that going forward. Just like you mentioned, like they pick little nuances from other leagues, and they're changing, and it's impacting the NFL that way, that they're changing rules. They're changing the way they do things, the way they handle injuries and whatnot. So, I agree. Right on about that.
Absolutely. And who knows, then maybe Netflix will start picking up some Thursday night games and things like that as well.
Hey, you know what?
It's gearing that way.
Streaming service, it is what it is, right? And right now it's Amazon was Thursday Night Football, and you see the other streaming sources that are starting to get into the niche here, and it's only going to grow.
Yeah.
Like this is where it's headed. The days of cable, the days of satellite have been long gone, but the days of cable, they're going to be gone as well, because everybody streams now. There's not a whole lot of households now that just don't stream at all. So it's headed that way, and it's a new technology, and the NFL is jumping on it right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I'm excited to see that. I think it's cool. I have Netflix, and that's something I would watch.
It's another revenue stream. I mean, this is what it's about, is making money for the NFL.
Yep, absolutely. And so what else tonight we decided to talk about too as well is a lot of times, for the past couple of years, I think we've just gone and broke down like the biggest questions going through each team and things like that.
Yeah.
And some of them are tough to do, and some of them, when
you have
the teams, like every time we look at the Baltimore Ravens, like, man, they don't really have a weak spot on some of this. So we're going to change it up a little bit this year, and we're just going to kind of throw it out there, even open to you guys out there.
Right on.
Let us know what your questions are coming into camp for any of the teams out here. What do you feel about your team? What's something that's weighing on your mind that you might think that needs to change during training camp? You're looking to find out after training camp and going into the season, and what you maybe expect to see throughout the season that they can change from the previous year. So I'm going to ask you guys out there, what are some of the biggest questions facing some of the teams as we get into camps here?
Right, and one thing is, like, I was looking at the AFC East, right, and I'm looking at all the teams. I looked at the Bills, and I looked at Miami, what they've done, the New England Patriots, the Jets. Obviously, like, people are gonna be like, well, the Jets did the most, and they did. You're right, because what was the one thing missing from them is quarterback play, not consistent quarterback play. You had Mike White in for a stint; he did well, but then he also failed in a couple other games, and then you had Zach Wilson, who kind of destroyed himself
Yeah.
with the comments that he made, and he was ousted really quickly. So he's still on the roster, which is interesting, but Mike White isn't. Mike White is now with a different team, and I think Miami, right? I think he went to
I
Miami.
want to say so, yes.
But then now what's interesting is they have Aaron frickin' Rodgers. They have Aaron Rodgers, soon to be Hall of Famer, former Pro Bowler. Like, this guy is an amazing player, even at this point in his career. He's been an amazing person and consistent and a leader and a guy that you can get behind. When Aaron Rodgers walks into the locker room, everybody is going to be like, they're going to take notice. Like, this is Aaron Rodgers. Some of them grew up watching him. Some of them are like, wow.
Including Zach Wilson.
Exactly. So, and he's a huge fan of Rodgers. So it's like, this could also help out Zach Wilson maybe in his maturity, in his career and develop his skills even better behind none other than his childhood favorite type of quarterback. So, with the Jets now, with that big move with getting Rodgers, you look at the receiving core is absolutely ridiculous. It's super deep. They have every little nuance of receivers you possibly could want. They end up improving that. They get all their offensive linemen healthy, and they're back. Their rookie running back is returning, so that's a positive too. And then defensively, they got better. So this Jets team right now, I mean, yes, they finished 7-10 last year, but that was with quarterbacks that weren't consistent, that didn't have that leadership role. I mean, not Mike White. Mike White seemed to have a handle on things, but overall, the consistency wasn't there for both quarterbacks. And now you bring in a future Hall of Famer who's is going to be there, who's going to be has plenty of experience in any situation, Super Bowl, playoff, regular season, tight game. He's been there, done that type of deal. This guy's going to boost this offense tremendously. And with that, this defense of theirs is so solid and was so good last year that it's going to make them even more dangerous because they're going to get the ball back to Rodgers, and Rodgers is going to score, and then they're going to get the ball back for Rodgers again, and they're going to score. This could be a very dangerous season for the Jets in terms of good luck stopping them in this division. I think the AFC East is really competitive, but overall, we know what the Bills are. They're another stout team, a team that we've put on the mountaintop, so to speak, and like they got to do it next. They got to do it next. They finished 13-3 last year, but they still haven't gotten the job done. They still haven't won a Super Bowl. They're right up there in the running. Miami Dolphins, their biggest thing. Consistency on offensive line. They had a few guys injured last year. It kind of derailed things. Tua ended up being gone for quite some time, concussions and what have you. So that kind of derailed their season. But now everybody's healthy. A whole new leaf has turned, right? The Patriots, they're in kind of the same boat. Very good defense. They improved that side of the ball as well. And then the offense comes back, and hopefully a little bit more continuity is going to be built because the offensive play calling was called into play last year. Was very questionable at times even. So that could even be a big question mark is for New England. Like, is it this year going to be a better year in terms of offensive play calling? We hope so, if you're a Patriots fan. And overall, I mean, this is probably one of the more competitive divisions now this season. When you look at each team, there's not a ton of weaknesses. They're all pretty solid in their rosters. It comes down to health and performance.
Yeah, I mean, we covered a lot there on that. But as far as the Bills, the one question you got to look at is are they finally going to get it done here? Because they've made it to outside of the championship game, then the championship game, and it's either the Chiefs or the Cincinnati Bengals have taken them out. They need to be able to beat those teams,
and they can.
Have they done enough here, on the offensive line even to help keep Josh Allen up, because even last year he was sacked 33 times, was the most since 2019. And that's your key guy. Like you said, the cover of Madden, it's got to be the guy to get it done. He says this year he's not going to run as much. We'll find out. But you need to protect that asset, because keep him healthy. He's the whole bread and butter of your whole system here. And they've added a few other weapons, going with the 2 tight end sets here, getting Dalton Kincaid here with the draft, and then still having Dawson Knox here. I can see them mixing it up a little bit there. A lot of Gabe Davis, and then, of course, Stephon Diggs. But one thing that does one question I do have, and I know it's kind of like a minor thing, and the media is trying to make more of it, what's going on here in camp, but I think it's very odd when like the head coaches, when they're asked about a player, and if they do say, hey, he was excused that day to go home and stuff, and then he shows up to practice, we get blow it off. It's like, yeah, it's a thing. But when a coach doesn't just say, yeah, he had the day off, or he asked to leave early, we excused him, left early, that's fine, that's it. All right, next. He says, yeah, there were some internal issues that we're dealing with here with him, and we're working it out. But I think right now everybody's okay. It's like, what the hell is that? You know what I mean? Because and it's not exactly payment related, like this and stuff on the football field. It's something else between the organization and Stephon Diggs, and it's just kind of weird that you wouldn't just diffuse a situation like that and just kind of make it awkward for everybody.
Yeah, Sean McDermott, that's a terrible answer as a coach. And
even if something is going on.
It's something that you would expect from an inexperienced coach to say, like, oh, oops, I didn't mean to say that, but, and then you catch a little flack afterwards. But for Sean McDermott, like, what are you doing? Like, you're supposed to be the leader, the captain of the ship here, and circle the wagons a little bit here for Buffalo and kind of rein it in, and don't let the media kind of run rampant with a comment like that when there really isn't going to be an issue. Like, don't kind of stir the pot when it doesn't need to be stirred. So like for Stephon Diggs, and because he didn't show up to practice, and then he made this comment, and it's like, oh man, what does that mean? Does that mean that Stephon Diggs is going to get traded? Does that mean that, oh my God, there's going to be internal issues, and who knows if he's going to be a Bill for very long? Like, don't do that to yourselves. Like, that was a mistake on Sean McDermott's part, and I really think he realized that right after he said it. You know what I mean? It was one of the things where he kind of let it roll off the tongue. He's like, oh, no, damn it. It's too late now. It's already out there. So, obviously, like, there was a conversation had at a later point in time between Diggs and the organization and McDermott, and they kind of squashed everything. They're okay. Like, I think they were okay before. I just think it was a dumb comment on McDermott's part, and hopefully he never makes one of those again. But overblown. You know what I mean? Basically, it's just an overblown situation. We knew Diggs wasn't going anywhere. We knew this, but obviously the media is going to take it and run and make it a big story because there's not a whole lot going on right now.
Right.
And that seems to be the case for a lot of articles coming out right now at this point in time because, there's not a ton going on, not a ton of cool news, great news, big-time news. So they're trying to make something out of nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. We got Ryan Graham is in the house with us tonight out there.
What's going on, Ryan? Welcome to the show.
He says, how you feel about the Raiders? Any questions? You got questions, Joe, about the Raiders?
I think
there's got to be even at least, quarterback situation.
I think there's a lot more than just one.
That, yeah, I mean, there's a bunch, Josh Jacobs. I mean, you could I would say this.
For the Raiders, they have a lot of questions, and it all stems from a year ago. Moving on, the decision from moving on from Derek Carr, that's a huge question mark. I feel like a lot of owners, GMs around the league kind of scratch their heads on that type of a move. When you have a franchise type of quarterback on your team already, you usually don't give those things up. And they decided to. So they decided to move on from their leader, the captain of the team, the guy that was holding it down at that position for so long. And decided to go with a guy who is injured often. I mean, it is what it is. And after that, like, okay, you can point fingers, but yeah, but they got Devontae Adams, but they don't have Darren Waller anymore. They had to draft a guy to hopefully replace him, and we don't know what Michael Mayer's going to be. We don't. He's a rookie. He could be a very solid tight end. He could be terrible at the next level. We don't know. We're expecting him to be better, but we just don't. He's uncertain right now. He looks the part, but you got to wait and see. And that's when you make those big time changes for any team, whether it be cornerstone pieces, star players on the team, like a Carr and like Darren Waller, and you make changes there, that's going to definitely impact your roster overall and your performance next season. It's going to change. Mm-hmm. And then let's talk to defense. The defense was putrid last year.
Yeah.
There was no good answer for it last season.
Mm-hmm.
They needed to improve it. Didn't see a ton of improvement. Yes, they drafted some defensive players. They're hoping that pan out in the end. They added a couple of second string type level type players that had good years the previous year. They're hoping that they're going to keep ascending and keep getting better and hopefully turn into starters for them this year. But again, it's a lot of question marks. A lot of question marks at linebacker. Do you have enough depth? I don't think they do. I don't think they have any true impact starter capable linebackers there. And then the secondary is kind of like, like I said, like it's who knows? It's you're putting your hands out and you're saying, let's see how this goes. And as a coaching staff and a GM, I think the Raiders, they are not going down the pathway that they should be going, because everybody envisioned them last year going to the playoffs again and maybe getting a little further. That didn't happen. They went backwards. And then this year, you change a lot roster-wise, and then you're hoping that you're going to do even better than last year. To me, the math doesn't shake out. It doesn't look like the equation is going to get them to where they're hoping to get short term anyways.
All right, we've got a guy from Twitch out there, Thanos Heisenberg.
All right, Thanos.
Thanos.
Welcome to the show, bro.
He says the Raiders have no chance this year. Every team is better in their division, and most AFC teams are better. McDaniels needs Daddy Belichick to do anything noteworthy in the NFL.
I would disagree with the Belichick thing, because here's the one thing that Belichick did great is, one, he's one of the greatest coaches, and two, defensive minds. He didn't handle the offense. However, I will say this, that Belichick dictated, in a sense, what type of play was run offensively. He didn't make the calls offensively, but he's like, Josh, no, we're not going to run this play. We're gonna do a short pass here. Pick a short pass and do that. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. So yeah, I could see something similar. Like he did kind of maybe dictate a little bit on what type of play, but I don't think he obviously didn't make all the calls that way. But Belichick, great coach. He's one of the best ever to do it, and McDaniels has failed yet again as a head coach.
Yeah, it looks that way, but again, it's like what he said. They're not going to be very good this year. It seems like ownership has totally bought in and said, all right, McDaniels, now here it is, another year with what you want to do, set your plan in motion, do what you got to do with whoever you want to do it with. Get rid of guys, get some other guys in, and have at it.
And that's the thing.
It's been rough, and he's stripped it down and things like that.
But that's the thing is when you have,
it's going to be a rebuild.
When you have a team that's already a playoff caliber team with less talent, mind you, and then you come in and you just break it down even more.
He has to do what you want. Or
the math doesn't shape out.
Yeah.
And you bring up Mark Davis, the owner, he's like, oh, well, this is a long-term plan. Well, we all know Mark Davis doesn't have the deepest pockets.
Right.
So he can't just keep going through head coaches after head coach. He's trying to ride this thing out, and hopefully it gets better before it gets worse, but it's already gotten worse.
Yeah.
And it looks like it's just going to continue to get worse with every decision that they've made so far.
And now that segues us into the Patriots again, I think. Here for them, it was kind of a feel-it-out year last year. Again, we had to look at the different people calling plays, Matt Patricia getting into it. We knew it wasn't going to be that successful, but it was so much that, Mac Jones was complaining about what's going on.
Right.
And we even had a little bit of a controversy here with Bailey Zappi going into the game too,
Yes,
on top of things with Mac Jones, because Mac Jones wasn't even lighting it up either for them.
Yeah.
And but the thing is with Bill Belichick, even and not having a consistent quarterback here, they're still winning some games here. Like you said, we looked at their record and like, man, they actually played pretty good for what they kind of were on paper, what we saw here. And now making the switch though to going back to Bill O'Brien here to running the offense.
That's a good idea.
Definitely, that's back when there was their glory days,
Right.
you know, when he used to do it. Maybe
They were
what he
still
could do
successful,
best, you know, because he hasn't done it in a while. But, you know, go back to doing what you were doing best. Stick with what works, and maybe they can get this offense going. Add Juju Smith-Schuster, things like that. So the only question with me for those guys, again, is, okay, you did pretty good last year. Now, can you make that next step forward here in a division now that's even tougher to compete in with an Aaron Rodgers coming to town?
Yeah, and that's the thing is this division, and that's why we brought it up. I just think it's going to be one of the more competitive divisions because there's so many avenues each team can go. We've seen the Bills be on top for a short amount of time, and now everybody is starting to catch up to the Bills in terms of they're just not, you can't just walk over them anymore. It's not a division where it's like, oh, well, we don't have much competition in this division. I think we're going to win this easily. Now it's like they're looking over their shoulders and saying, wow, Miami just got better. Miami is healthy now. New England is always solid, but man, they're another team that has improved a little bit. And then the Jets have made the most improvement in one off season. So it's like, well, buckle your chin strap because this is going to be a tough season ahead. So, and then for New England, you know, they're just one of those teams that won't go away. You know what I mean? Like they've been dominant for so long, and they're just solid no matter what happens. I thought for sure that they were going to take a decline a little bit. I didn't think they were going to be as good last year. I didn't think they were going to finish 8-9. I thought it was going to be a little bit worse, maybe 6 wins, 7 wins. But for them to get 8, I was impressed. And through a lot of issues, right? Like offensive play calling was an issue at times, not all the time, but it was there. Everybody knew it. Patriot fans knew it. Yep. They were barking from the stands. They wanted his head. You know, they wanted some kind of a change. Bill, take the offensive playbook and do something because he's not, you know. But now they bring back Bill O'Brien, like you mentioned, and this is a very savvy move for New England because this is somebody that's familiar with the offense, familiar with the players that they have, and somebody that can come in and make this kind of streamlined and where there's not going to be too much of a learning curve. They already know what's to be expected in New England. Now Bill O'Brien returns. Yes, he hasn't been there. He's taken a little bit of a hiatus, went to college football and whatnot, and now is back in the NFL. But a coach doesn't forget how to coach. So he knows his deal. He knows what's expected of him at the NFL level. He knows how to handle it. And I feel like this is not only a brilliant move by New England, but you're going to see it on game day when the offense takes the field and how much better it is going forward for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Now, switching to the NFC East, I think for them, I got to talk about the New York Giants, and a big question facing them, which we've heard about in the headlines too, as well, is Saquon Barkley. What are you going to do here? You tagged him. He wants a bigger deal, long term. And at first they weren't really getting along.
They weren't talking.
They've come back to the table a little bit here. He says he doesn't want to be the highest paid, but then they haven't met at a number yet. So you got to talk about guaranteed money. So the argument for his side, guaranteed money, and the Giants has got to be, all right, long-term health. You know, what are you going to do? Are you going to be able to stay healthy? We're banking on you being this guy that you were last year, but then even a guy that was 2-3 seasons ago consistently. And so this is what we have to put our money, and they don't really have a lot of money this year, with cap space. They do next year and then opening up, so it's got to be a really structured a certain way type of contract with a lot of bonus money, but that guaranteed money is the issue for them. But you figure with this type of star player here on this roster, it changes the whole offense. They've got to get this deal done.
Yeah, and I think they will get it done. I mean, it's one of these things where a player of his caliber, you don't just kind of let go. You don't give up on. They're going to get a deal done, What I'm interested about in this whole negotiation period is, yeah, they took a break. They haven't been talking. They just picked up talks today, and they're just kind of lukewarm. They're kind of warming back up, trying to get some different opinions or different ideas of each other. And I feel like this is a really good thing, because he's one of the first players that have been tagged that is starting negotiations right now. And that's a positive, because that means both sides want to get it done. Mm-hmm. And when that happens, it usually gets done in the end. And like you mentioned, okay, they got $3 million under the cap space this season currently. Yeah. So they don't have a lot of money this year, but signing bonus is always a good motivator for that. You could give him a $2 million base salary, but then the owner can come in and be like, here, I'm going to give you a $15 million signing bonus on top of it all just to get the deal done. And then after this year, you structure it where he kind of makes a jump in pay, $12 million a year, whatever the case may be. And like you mentioned there, guaranteed money is a huge and critical point in any free agent contracts and the tag players, because they're looking for security. They don't want to be left out in the cold, so to speak. They don't want to play 2 years and then the team kind of is like, well, I think we're going to go in a different direction. You're costing us a lot of money, and you've done great for us, but we think we can get a player to replace you and move on. Mm-hmm. And then here you are as a player 2 years later, like, wait, I got 4 more years. I got 4 more years left. Now you're getting rid of me. Now I got to move. I gotta move my family again. I have to go to find a different school. I got to go to a different team, different area, do the whole moving process all over again and all that kind of craziness. Players don't want that. They want to stay where they're settled in. And Saquon Barkley wants to stay in New York City. It's that simple. So I feel like in the end, both sides want to get this done. They're going to get it done. It's just going to be interesting for a lot of other tagged players that are waiting on contracts to see if Barkley does, in fact, sign first. You might see some dominoes fall if he's the first one, because then you're going to get an idea of what contracts can be had for that position. So like guys like Josh Jacobs, he's another big-time running back. Another team in the same situation where they definitely can't let him go. They can't give up on him. They need to keep him. So for Saquon, it's a good thing. They started contract talks once again, and things are looking good. Listen, whenever you see both sides like this started up, all of a sudden you're like, okay, they both want to get it done. It's not one side reaching out over the other. It's not, well, we're trying to reach out, and we're not getting anything back. They're both coming together, and I think that's a good sign.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Staying with the NFC East, the Washington Commanders. My question for them is basically how long until Eric Bieniemy becomes the head coach for this team? Because the way it's set up right now, they bring him in as the offensive coordinator. Nobody makes a parallel move for kind of no reason. You know what I mean?
No, there's a reason behind it.
And with Ron Rivera, how he's been handling this organization with the quarterback situation and things like that. And now that we're going in and banking on Sam Howell here after all this, I think if this team starts off bad and they start to play poorly and this plan is not working out, he's out the door. And then you've got Eric Bieniemy to move right in and now finally become a head coach due to a poor coaching stint for Washington here by head coach.
I kind of disagree with Ron Rivera doing a poor job. He's been a great leader of men. He's done it in Carolina. He's doing it in Washington. The wins that they have gotten with guys like Sam Howell, you know what I mean? They don't go unnoticed, because that's a big part in coaching. They've been able to pull off some wins late in games, sometimes comeback wins. Yeah, they don't have a lot of them, but it's there. You see that the players are not giving up on Ron Rivera as a head coach. As far as the quarterback's carousel that has been taking place in Washington, that's more of a GM move. That's the guy that makes the decision. It's not Ron Rivera. So for all those desperation moves to kind of put a Band-Aid over this organization, saying, okay, Ron, I got you a quarterback. Now you can win with him. Ron's not an offensive guy anyway. It's up to the offensive coordinator, which I would say that has done a pretty decent job too with the players that he's had. I mean, think of all the quarterbacks and what they've had to overcome with Carson Wentz and what have you. Like,
Yeah, but he's saying he went out and
rough.
got those guys. He's saying, I wanted that guy, and they went out and got him.
Yeah, but that's the GM move. That's not Ron Rivera going to get anybody. Ron Rivera can say anything he wants.
He also calls who starts and who doesn't, and he's pulled a guy like Taylor Heineke, who had the team on his shoulders and was playing well.
Yeah, that decision is his all day long. But as far as going to get a quarterback this year, then go get another quarterback next year, that's not him. He can make a suggestion, hey, I need someone different. But he's not finger pointing, but like, oh, I would definitely want Wentz. I definitely want this guy. I definitely want that guy. And then the GM's like, okay, do whatever you want, Ron. Like, so it's like, it's a marriage where they have to compromise in every single decision. Ron Rivera doesn't have the final say at all. It's always the GM and the owner above him. So when things come to pass and like, well, I don't know, I can't do anything with this guy. We've tried this year. It's not working out. He gets injured. He doesn't, practice well, or he doesn't perform on game day, whatever the case may be. They've been desperate for a quarterback for so long. So what do you do in that situation? It's not trading for a quarterback. It's not going to get a free agent. What do all the teams do to better that position? They draft one. Washington has failed to draft one, a high caliber quarterback, mind you, for quite some time. Mm-hmm. And that's really the gap. That's the big critical problem, is that they've neglected the quarterback position, the most important position in the league. And here you are, years later, we still need a quarterback. So, I mean, for Washington, for Ron Rivera, like, you have a point. Like, Ron Rivera, with Eric Bieniemy, this could happen where they have Bieniemy in their back pocket, and if they wanted to move on from Ron Rivera, they could, and here comes Bieniemy, who could just kind of slide over into that new role. But the reason why Eric Bieniemy made this move over everything wasn't because, oh, maybe I got a shot to be the head coach for Washington next season. It was because what was everybody saying in Kansas City? It's Andy Reid's offense. It's Andy Reid's offense. Andy Reid controls the offense. Yeah, Eric Bieniemy calls it, but Andy Reid himself is like, here, we're going to use this box of plays, and that's it for this game. So you call. He's making the calls, but these are the plays that I want called in this game. So the strategic part of it is already done for him. Now he's just got to mix up the plays in terms of play calling. Mm-hmm. Eric Bieniemy wanted to get out from underneath Andy Reid, go to a franchise that was looking for an offensive coordinator, and show everybody else out there like, hey, no, I'm a really good offensive coordinator on my own. Nobody's going to help me, because that has been his reputation, is that, oh, well, you're kind of sitting behind Andy Reid, and it's right to think, because it's Andy Reid's offense. It's Andy Reid's kind of, game plans and everything. Now he steps out of the shadow of Andy Reid. He's in Washington. He has some young players to utilize. Let's see how smart and strategic he can be on his own. And if he's successful with this offense, then you can say, okay, somebody hire this man right now as a head coach, because we've been neglecting this man for some time. He's well deserving of a head coach role and command our offense.
Yeah, I just don't see Washington let him go after that, though.
They don't have a choice. If he's already an offensive coordinator, he can go anywhere he wants.
I just think it's going to be in-house. All right, yeah. So let's move on. You don't have any questions about the Eagles or the Cowboys, right? I mean,
no, it's not worth it.
Same shit every year. So.
Well, the Cowboys,
is the same question. Right?
Will the Cowboys make the Super Bowl? I know Cowboy fans out there want to. They always think they're going to make the Super Bowl every year, but honestly, you're a good team, but you have a quarterback in Dak Prescott who has been in the limelight for quite some time, and not really performance-wise, but more of just like the star aspect of it. Like, oh, it's Dak Prescott. He's our guy. He threw the most 4, interceptions last year, everybody. Yeah. And that's not going to get you playoff wins. That's not going to get you into the Super Bowl, even winning a Super Bowl. So for me, with the huge contract that he still has left on his deal, what does Dallas do at that position? Because is it time to move on from Dak? I think it is. I think you have enough evidence where you can make a move. Now, I don't think you can make it. Maybe contract wise, they can't make a move right now. But I don't know what the fine details are right this second. But I will say this: if there's a way to get out of Dak Prescott and get yourself a quarterback, it's not going to be this season. It's going to be looking towards into the next offseason. It's going to be looking towards maybe the draft and drafting one. In preparation of maybe moving on from Dak, or in preparation of making a move and making that change.
It's probably the next couple of years is the time to do it because, again, he's got his contract up. It's voided the last 2 years, so 2025 to 26. So 2024, it starts to get big here, though, and 23. So
I'll tell you right now.
Now's the time, this year or next year?
Neither year, because you got $88 million in dead cap money. You have another $61 million in negative. That's $61 million that you're going to. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And then even in 24, again, negative money, and on top of that, you're guaranteed him $61 million.
Yeah.
So it's not even good. Then 2025,
right,
is even. That's like the only time you probably could do it, and you're not going to eat as much, but that would be it. Those are void years. Never mind.
Yeah. That doesn't matter. So that's what I'm
so
saying.
Either way,
what about 2000?
But 25 is the year.
Yeah.
But you're still got to pay him all that guaranteed money. You still got to pay him over $40 million in guaranteed money, and then eat a cap. Not much of a cap savings there. You're going to eat that. So
they're kind of stuck.
They're stuck. They're really stuck.
So then it is find somebody in the draft if they
have to
happen to do
plan for the future now. If there's someone in the draft, this upcoming draft, which there's a lot of really good quarterback prospects in this upcoming draft, where if there's someone that Dallas likes, they should just go get him. Just go get him because you're going to need him. And I would say this: if he's out playing Dak in training camp, you make the change now. You put the rookie out there. You put the second-year guy out there, whatever it is. And then you make the move. And you eat that Dak Prescott will have to be back up at that point for his last year of his career or something like that. So with the Cowboys. So it's like that's the move that I think that Dallas is going to have to make. And despite their record, 12-5, the quarterback play has been putrid. It's been terrible. So I think that's what's holding Dallas back, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I can see it. And again, the Eagles got that much better, so it's tough to compete when you have a team like that in this division. So,
right,
at least for the NFC, especially now with the Packers, what's going on with them? It's still wide open here because again, that was your top cream of the crop type of team you had to deal with. It was Eagles or Packers around there. Now they're no longer there because I think with losing Aaron Rodgers, that just sets them back. There you go.
When you lose a Hall of Famer.
Obviously. So I mean, it's open for any of those teams, even if you end up having losing records like you saw last year, really tighter in win losses and. So any team can kind of make it, but what you do with it, it's after that once you make it to playoffs, But let's move up to the AFC North and let's talk about the Baltimore Ravens here. I know you had a question for the Baltimore Ravens, Joe.
Yeah, Ravens is their offense. What's their offense going to look like at this point? Because they have a new offensive coordinator. They have a lot of receivers now. They're the lucky ones that signed Odell Beckham Jr. Now here comes Todd Monken. Offensive coordinator formerly of Georgia, University of Georgia, has NFL experience as an offensive coordinator before that. So it's not like he's coming in like fresh, new type of college guy and trying to carve out a career for himself. But what you notice with Baltimore is that their receiving core has never been deeper. I mean, it's super deep. They drafted Zay Flowers in the first 23rd pick in the first round. They got Rashad Bateman. They got Odell Beckham, like we mentioned, a new shiny toy for Lamar Jackson. Devin Duvernay has been around, a good role type player. They also added Nelson Aguilar, a speedster of a wide receiver as well from New England, comes over to Baltimore. So here you have the makings of a 5-headed wide receiving core for the Baltimore Ravens, who have historically, since Lamar has been there, been a heavy running team, have relied on Lamar's legs a lot, but also he's gotten better as a quarterback, has gotten better as a passer, but they're just seen as this like run option type of offense because they know that Lamar Jackson, if need be, can take off with his legs and create some magic. Now, with Todd Monken, I think it's going to be similar. I don't think it's going to be the same. I don't think it's going to be so run heavy like before.
Right.
And with all these receivers that you've added to this roster, it looks like from an outside point looking in that you're preparing to make this more of a balanced offense. I still think there's going to be some run option plays, of course. I still think there's going to be some jet sweeps and what have you, little wrinkles of that in there too. But I feel like this is the season where Lamar Jackson is now going to be challenged as a quarterback, is now going to be asked to do a lot more passing than he has done previously. Where, yes, Mark Andrews has been one of his favorite targets, but now guess what? Now you have Mark Andrews and 5 other receivers that are more than capable of making plays. So Todd Monken, I feel, is going to definitely not go too far away from what works for them in terms of the running game and option plays with Lamar Jackson. But I think he's also going to challenge now Lamar. You're going to have to read defenses more often. You're going to have to make the right decision, the right pass to the right player, and let's see what he can do now. I feel like this is going to be the first season where Lamar is going to be challenged to be a all-around quarterback now. I get it. Lamar has done a great job from what he's been asked to do. But now it seems like with Monken coming in, he's going to open up this playbook, add some more passing plays to the book here, and have Lamar become more of a well-vast quarterback and not just got a guy seen as a running back that passes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we talked about this before with when he was talking about when he was sitting out with his injury, over the playoffs last year. They coasted into the playoffs. They had an opportunity to do things.
Yeah.
I think he was healthier than he was really letting on to be and say, I can go out and play, and he decided not to for his team.
It's possible. That's a lot of reports have said that too.
And to squander an opportunity like that, we've seen many times with other franchises. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you never get back there. Sometimes you can't get back there. And now he's got his money, though. He got paid.
Right.
So now you need to step up during those situations. Mm-hmm. You need to be there. You're not resting yourself to make sure that you get that next
big time money too. Real big money.
You're there. So you need to perform. So that's your question here for them. Like you said, time to lay it all out there. You got your money. Now it's time to be that guy with the weapons that you have. There are no excuses anymore. No. And it is interesting to see what little changes might happen to this offense. Especially, it would be a waste to not air it out a little bit to some of these weapons that he has, especially with an Odell Beckham Jr. Because he is going to get vocal if you're
not getting the ball.
Because even if your offense is a little more run heavy, look what happened with the Kevin Stefanski with the Cleveland Browns. They had Kareem Hunt and Chubb right there running the ball, successful with those guys.
Right.
Baker Mayfield wasn't a runner and things like that, but they were able to do things like that, stay a little more balanced, and maybe with touch to the run side, but had the weapons and wasn't happy. So let's look forward and see if we can follow that situation, see if Odell might be happy this year.
Well, Thanos says he's got to comment again.
All right, he says Giants overachieved last year. I think there will be some regression. They didn't upgrade much. Waller is nice if healthy, but no guarantees. Vikings are in the same boat for me. So there you go. So he's a Vikings fan.
Yeah. So same kind of story is being written, especially for the Vikings. I feel like not much has changed there as an organization. In terms of personnel and what have you. Like obviously they added in the draft, but overall it's still kind of the same team. That minus Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook just gets released. You know what I mean? And now it looks like this team is going to go through a little bit of growing pains at the running back spot. Like they have Madison there as now looks to be the starting running back there. So that's interesting. I've always liked him. But again, he's not Dalvin Cook. He's not that explosive type of running back like Cook is. So I think like you mentioned regression, I think there's going to be a little regression in the running back department for Minnesota. without having that star type of running back now with Cook out there. They're going to go through a little bit of a change offensively. And I wonder how that's going to impact Kirk Cousins because there's going to be even more pressure now on Kirk Cousins to perform day in and day out because he doesn't have a top tier, I guess you would say, running back behind him anymore. Yeah. Now he's got a guy who's good, can handle the workload, but no one that's going to like change the game.
Yeah, usually when you walk away from a 4-time Pro Bowler, I mean that you're going to have a little bit of an impact there. You know what I mean?
Right. So yeah, I would say that too for the Vikings, but for the Giants, overachieving last year, I would definitely agree. I mean, I would think you would agree too.
Yeah.
That they've overcome a lot of odds. I mean, no receiving core really. Their offensive line was vastly injured, and then it was basically Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley. Here, make something happen on offense, and they did.
Right.
And then the Giants' defense though was pretty good.
Yeah.
Like they improved that this past offseason. They also are looking at now. You might even actually have a receiving core to throw to. You might have a couple tight ends to get more involved, an offensive line that's improved. So, and then if they're able to sign Saquon, which I think is going to happen, now you're looking at a much improved team that overachieved last year that could achieve great things this year.
Yeah, I think, again, they were overachieving last year. This year, I think they could do more of the same because it looks like, again, they've added the right type of weapons to get them in a better situation than what they were doing last year. They already had terrible players that weren't really performing as it is, but then injuries on top of injuries. Yeah. And then they found some good players that performed within the ranks, and guys that they found off the practice squad and off the street and made it work. But another year with this offense and Brian Daboll and then some extra weapons here, and then next year getting that extra money too on top of it, I think is just the beginning process of something better. And if you could start off with another consecutive year of what we had remotely close to last year, I think we'll be building in the right situation for further years to come.
And I think one of the biggest differences that they've made, the biggest talent that they've added to this team is actually a rookie. John Michael Schmitz, who they drafted, is going to be amazing for them. A guy that's going to be the captain of your offensive line, making the pass protection calls, and is going to excel. So, like right there, having that your quarterback of the offensive line already inserted, even though he's a rookie, Giants fans, you're going to love this guy. Trust me.
We have one of our know-it-alls in the house tonight. It's Mike Tackett. Watching us on
Joe, who is the hippie next to you? Hashtag get a haircut.
Hashtag know-it-all.
Don't be jealous because I still grow hair.
I'm a little jealous. I mean, how could I not be?
I know. Hey, come on.
Mike,
you gotta do
if you're wondering,
come on, Mike.
You remember how Jimmy looks. That's actually Jimmy. So he just has a lot more hair.
Yeah, that's true. So I'm just doing something different. Let me breathe.
Changing it up.
When I decide to change it, I'll change it. But I think it's funny how every week we have to have a hair comment, in the comments.
I think it's becoming a staple, actually.
It is. I should do it more often, Yeah, maybe I should curl it next time some more. I already have my natural curls, but I'll do something different with it every year. You know what I'm saying? Or every week. All right, so we're talking AFC North. What about the Cincinnati Bengals here, Joe? Again, one easy questions for everybody out there is like, can they take it back to the Super Bowl again? Can they get it done? But not a whole lot of situations or questions here with that team because of the personnel that they still have, except maybe that running back situation.
Yeah, Joe Mixon, he's having a little bit of a court problem right now. Not really sure if he's going to be available come week 1. It sounds like he's going to be missing most of training camp, if not all, and very uncertain. But this is the type of time in the season, in the off season here, where you're about to approach training camp. Usually teams they'll evaluate their rosters, especially, the first week in training camp. And if Mixon isn't available and isn't going to be available for quite some time, they might pull the trigger and sign one of these free agent running backs as insurance. A guy like Zeke is still available. A guy like Kareem Hunt is still available. A guy like Leonard Fournette is still available. All guys that could be inserted right away and handle the workload and start, and they have experience. So capable players, and that's an avenue that they could go. Another thing, too, like for me is a big question is right tackle. Jonah Williams gets forced to move from left tackle because they signed Orlando Brown Jr. And does not like it one bit. Did not like the signing. As soon as he heard it, did not like the signing. He's like, all right, well, where's he playing? And they're like, well, he's playing left tackle. Where am I playing? You're going to play right tackle. What? I'm a left tackle. I do not want to play right tackle. And here's the thing is it's not easy when you've done it your whole life and you've played one side or the other and you're asked to just all of a sudden switch sides and be like, oh, it's not a big deal. You just got to switch sides, switch your footing, switch your hand placement. No, it's like you've been eating your whole life right-handed. And then all of a sudden I ask you when you're 35 years old and I say, hey, I need you to eat with only your left hand now. That's what it's like. It's that difficult to just kind of change over and, you know what I mean, and kind of relearn and do technique-wise and everything. So that's going to be a huge thing to watch is for Jonah Williams. You know, I think he's going to be – he's not happy about it. I think he's going to do it because he's a team player, because he's going to do it for his franchise and what have you. But they also have Collins, that is in waiting basically as a backup at right tackle, Lyle Collins there. And he has a big time serious injury and the Bengals are a little worried about it. I think that's why they pulled the trigger to get Orlando Brown and just said, hey, we're going to move Jonah. But now what does that mean for Collins? What does that mean, for the future? What does that mean for Jonah? Because Jonah might try it out a couple weeks into training camp and just be like, I have had it. I'm not playing right tackle. It is so weird for me. I can't do this. I want to be traded. And at any point he could ask for that because he might be just so unhappy with the position move that he just wants out now. Now, Lyle Collins, again, they're not even sure if he's going to be able to return to play football. They're saying it could be that serious that he might even be done for his career. That there's nothing official about it, but that is the expectation of where they're headed. So for Lyle Collins, very uncertain for his career. If he even is able to return, what is what do the Bengals do then? Mm-hmm. Like now, if he comes back and he's like, okay, I'm healthy enough to play, but you gave my spot away. Like now, are you just going to cut him? Are you going to look to trade him? So I feel like their whole team, for me, there's not really question marks. They're pretty solid everywhere. They're going to, most likely, they're definitely going to return to the playoffs and what have you, and we'll see what they do after that. But this is a big question, is the uncertainty still at right tackle? Because there's no indication that Jonah Williams is going to kind of toe the line and go with it all. Or he might just grow frustrated in training camp and say, no, I want to be traded. I'm done with this. Mm-hmm. And if that happens and you don't get Lyle Collins back, now you still have a huge hole at right tackle. And that could mean trouble for Joe Burrow and the Bengals.
Yeah, I mean, that change happened a while ago, and we haven't heard anything about that after, because they put their foot in the ground and say, listen, dude, we're not trading you, so forget about it. But as training camp blooms and what happens during that, this story might creep back up. It's there. It's going to get bigger. Something happens. So
it's going to get bigger.
If it ends up being that big of an issue. Let's talk about the Cleveland Browns now here too. For me, a question for them has got to be, at least for Deshaun Watson, is can he get back to his old self? Kind of, they laid in all that money to try and get that guy that was a former, one of the best players in the league, and he plays 6 games last year, and he's 58% compared to Jacoby Brissett's 50 or 65% completion percentage, 7 touchdowns, 5 INTs. Just looks rusty. We kind of imagine this happening too. It was funny when analysts jump on this again and say, "Hey, this is a great deal." Boom, 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 and jump on it. Hey, look at these guys. Look at the Browns. They're going to do this. And you had to expect that there was going to be a little bit of rust because he sat out so long dealing with the court cases and things like that. So that's the biggest question for them, because they invested the money. They have him there, they have some good talent there too. They added
Really good talent.
Zadarius Smith on the defense to help them out. They were 21st, I think, in the league last year. Offense, 18th, for Kevin Stefanski offense, and Nick Chubb's still there running the football too as well. That's the big question: is can Deshaun Watson get back to the guy of old? If they can at least compete in this division. And despite him not being that guy, Jacoby Brissett was holding it down for them and got them to 7-10. But they need to really step up if you got a guy that you invested so much money in Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, Deshaun Watson, there's no question I think he's going to return back to his old ways. I mean, it's just about shaking the rust off. You got to remember, came into mid-season and tried to mid-season figure it all out, which we all knew there was going to be a lot of rust, and it showed on game day. I didn't think it was going to be that bad because it was pretty bad when he showed up on the football field week in and week out and was struggling. Got a little tiny bit better at the end of the season. You started to notice a little bit of a tick upwards in terms of performance, but not enough to be like a big jump. So now having that little bit of a kind of like a week-to-week practice, if you will, for this through the season. Now he's got a whole off season to work on everything, is with the team all the time, is going to go to all the OTAs, is working chemistry with the receivers. And I'll tell you right now, the Browns have improved even more than last year because they pulled off a trade for Elijah Moore from the Jets, going to add a lot of talent to that receiving core. They already have Cooper. They have Donovan Peoples-Jones, who's a good role player, like a slot receiver for them. And then Cedric Tillman, gets drafted in the third round, who is an up-and-coming type of receiver. I feel good about that. And they got a speedster in Marquise Goodwin. So he's got weapons, you know what I mean, is what I guess I'm trying to say. And on top of that, David Njoku is becoming a favorite target of his, which had a very good season last year, and the offensive line they have in place is solid. So not much to worry about in terms of overall personnel for Watson to distribute the football, but his performance and production is going to increase. There's no doubt.
Should they add an in-house massage parlor?
No.
Okay.
Not at all.
That might help.
Because I'll tell you, and then like defensively, they're super stacked. They have tons of talent up and down the roster. So no worries about them. They're a team that is going to be as good as their quarterback is for this upcoming season. That's pretty much it.
All right, Mike Tackett says, who is targeting Zach Wilson? Should the Jets want to ship him? I say Minnesota, Detroit, the Los Angeles Rams, Tennessee, and Tampa Bay all could throw some draft capital the Jets' way.
I'm going to say no. The Jets do like Zach Wilson still, which is kind of funny the way when you think about it. It's like after all the issues that you had with Zach Wilson, they want to stick with him. The organization has said this much. They said that they see more in Zach Wilson than they did in Mike White. And I know a lot of Jets fans will be surprised to hear that comment, but that's the real deal. That's why he's still there. And they think by having Rodgers there in the locker room, at practice, and everything, that Zach Wilson is going to come away and learn a lot from Rodgers. And then when Rodgers does, in fact, decide to move on and retire, that Zach Wilson will come in a different and new type of quarterback.
All right. Yeah. Who knows? He doesn't have a lot to show on tape so much. So maybe some teams.
He's shown some really good highlights. He's done some good things.
But I mean, maybe some teams have thrown it out there. But again, his value is probably its lowest right now. So, what would they try and get from him? I don't think teams would really, like he's talking about draft capital.
Yeah, they're not going to trade him.
There's not going to be any kind of real draft capital for a guy that has ruined the locker room, camaraderie, things like that. And again, damaged his reputation with the franchise altogether to where he got benched all the way to the third spot. And now you bring in a veteran, MVP and Aaron Rodgers to take your place.
Yeah, but that's a statement from the organization. Mm-hmm. Like earn your way back, and he's recognizing that. So there's a reason why he's still there. Mm-hmm. It's not because his value is so low they're not going to get rid of him. No, it's because they do think they really like his abilities, and they just think he needs to grow as a human being, and they think he needs to grow as a quarterback in his discipline and what have you. So I think it's a good idea. If they were out on him, then obviously he would probably be gone by now. But bringing in Rodgers and then saying, you know what, Zach Wilson looks up to Rodgers. This could be a good thing for Zach Wilson to learn under Rodgers, learn how to be a pro, not be an immature type of player, but learn how to act as a quarterback, how to be a leader, how to practice, how to work off the field, on the field. These are all things that he's going to take away from Rodgers. And I hope he learns, because if he does, that's going to make him elevate as a quarterback. And maybe the Jets, if they don't give up on him, he'll be able to return to a starter and be better for it.
Mm-hmm. Now moving to the AFC North. I guess the one question, if you want to, because we already talked about the Vikings a little bit, but to encapsulate the whole division, now with Aaron Rodgers leaving the Green Bay Packers, who is poised to take that division right now? We see an excelling team in the Detroit Lions last year, fighting hard and even, trying to eliminate teams from the playoffs, even though they were mathematically out of it. And coming out with victories. The Minnesota Vikings, who has always been there, but then they had that big brother of, the Packers there to take them out. But now Packers, again, trying to figure out what they have in Love. So, and then the Bears, started to come around a little bit at the end of the year after they released a bunch of people or traded them, got rid of some weight, and then drafted really well. So, do they have enough? We've seen teams like the Jacksonville Jaguars, come in last and then all of a sudden finish in first in the next division. Are the Bears ready to make a push like that? What do you think about that, Joe? And who's poised to make the run in this division?
It's anybody's game, because now that the Packers don't have Rodgers, it dramatically changes the landscape of this division. The Vikings, I think they're going to be the initial favorite, obviously, because they finished 13-4 last year. They still kind of have the same team, and experience is already on the roster. So it's like everyone's going to point the finger like, it's easily going to be Minnesota. But I would pump your brakes, because there is a couple teams that have vastly improved their team overall, one being Detroit Lions. And they were, I think, was it the first 6 weeks of last season, right? They were the number one offense in the league, not the division, the league. Like, they were putting up points like no other for the first quarter of the season. So I think that's a team to keep your eye open on. Like, keep your eye on here, because the Lions are going to be this, I feel like they're going to be this yet sneaky team that not a lot of people are going to hype up, and out of nowhere, they're going to be 3-0, 4-0 off the beginning of the season, and they're going to be on top of the division. Now it's going to be up to Detroit whether they give that up or not. And you look at what they've done. They have obviously Amon-Ra St. Brown. They have Jamison Williams, who they drafted 2 years ago, who is one season was a wash because obviously injuries. He couldn't play, and he played late last season. And now here he is 100% healthy, a guy that was super dynamic to the point where there was an argument whether he'd be number one receiver taken overall. So they have a couple of studs in their back pocket here. And then on top of that, they have other receivers to throw to. They have Josh Reynolds, who's been kind of a journeyman receiver, but a very solid one wherever he goes. Marvin Jones coming over from Jacksonville. So there's some depth here. There's something to build here. And then tight end, they drafted Sam Laporta, who is more of a hybrid type of tight end, a guy that can do everything well. Little shorter on the side as a tight end with shorter arms, but a lot of people believe that he can be a very big impact at the tight end position.
And then, we've got Jeffrey Domney in the house tonight.
What's going on, Jeff? Welcome to the show.
The Lions are running away with that division.
Yeah,
and they look really good right now.
This is why we're talking them up.
They finished last year, and to compete with a division that it's a lot closer now. When you don't have a guy like Aaron Rodgers on the other side, you don't have to play him twice. And they look they're improving every year, especially what they did in the draft as well.
Yeah, and then you look on the defensive side of the ball, and they just got better. Like, they got a guy that a lot of people think was a reach in the draft. I don't think so. And Jack Campbell, a middle linebacker, who is going to be a star for them at that position for many years. And then along with their young defensive line with Aiden Hutchinson, Ali McNeil, Isaiah Buggs, but they have this secondary that they have a lot of guys that you like to see. Cameron Sutton is a new addition to this team, one of the best slot corners in the league. He's got to be there. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, a guy that was sitting out in free agency for quite some time, and everybody was confused why he was still available. They end up grabbing him. Now he can play safety. He could play corner. There's a lot of things that you like to see in the improvement of this team, and they've done them all this offseason. To now, we saw how good they were last year. They're going to be even better this year. And this division could be Detroit's if they want it bad enough.
Absolutely. Donald Spence is with us tonight, too.
What's going on, Donald?
He says Goff is a bum. In the right situation, he's playing really well right now for Detroit, you know?
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing is Goff has this like stigma about him where that he's had a lot of haters in LA when he was there. He's not good enough. He can't get us over the hump, this, that, and the other thing. Well, he goes to Detroit, different environment, different personnel, and he's doing better things with them. Maybe it was an environment change he needed. Maybe it was the offense needed to be different, but he's excelling in Detroit. And that's going to be part of the reason why the Lions are going to take a big jump this year.
Yeah, I mean, again, like I said, the way that division lays up, it's going to be a tight division, but...
I appreciate the comment, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Donald, it's good to see him again. It's been a while since he's been out here.
Has been a while.
But as far as the Vikings, too, again, I've put in a lot of investment in them stuff, and they let me down all the time. But last year, it seemed like they would pull out some of those tighter wins where they're even down and they come out and pull out the victory somehow. And then other teams that were like teams they should have probably really beat, they didn't. You know what I mean? So it's kind of a funky thing with their record. There's a lot of stories behind that record and what it really is. It wasn't like they were like dominating. This is their record and boom, they just went through and they won on some of those games. Some of those were very surprising games, and again, hence the passing the chain around, and they got it to a different player every week and getting it. But when it came down to it and playoff time and things like that, again, coming up short here, and that's why that follows Kirk Cousins throughout his career and why he is going to be followed with a camera this year.
Yeah. I want to touch on Chicago right now.
Sure.
Because Chicago had an abysmal year, to say the least. 3-14 they finish. And this is a team that did a fantastic job of trading draft picks, manipulating the draft, drafting well, and adding some premier talent along the way. In one of those draft day trades, obviously it wasn't on draft day, but it was part of the draft, is acquiring DJ Moore from Carolina and getting multiple picks on top of it all. This is a guy that is a number one caliber receiver in the league and something that they have sought and needed for so long. Now they have one. They have a legitimate number one receiver in Moore. Chase Claypool I would think he's going to play more of a slot role, as I envision. And then Darnell Mooney, who has been in Chicago and has been one of the bright spots of that offense in a very bad season. Mm-hmm. You come away and you not only have improved the offensive line, you have these added weapons. Cole Kmet kind of had a coming out party last season and was more a part of the offense, and it worked out well for Justin Fields. Mm-hmm. He had to run a lot more.
Yeah.
But, that's because of the lack of offensive, the pass protection, the lack of the injury-riddled Chicago offensive line that was. And here you go. Let's fast forward. Now there's no more David Montgomery. He's gone. He's left. He went to a different team. And here comes none other than Khalil Herbert, who a lot of Chicago is very loved in Chicago.
Yeah.
A guy that has speed, he has dynamic moves, and he can catch the ball in the backfield. And they also tag team him with Deontay Foreman, who was also from Carolina, who started after McCaffrey left in a trade and played amazing as a starter. So you still have a good tag team there on your offense. And then you go to their defense, and we said, well, we even talked about this before the draft for Chicago. Like, they got a lot of holes on defense. They need to add a lot more players. And they didn't just wait till the draft. They also added in free agency. They bring in a star-studded linebacker in TJ Edwards from the Eagles. They bring in Tremaine Edmonds at middle linebacker from the Bills. Like, they really looked at different spots that were glaring holes, and they addressed them. And I feel like because they've done such a good job in this offseason and have added more weapons for Justin Fields to throw to and have done everything right to this point, they're no longer going to be bottom feeders in this division. I feel like Chicago's going to make a big leap this year. And it's going to be a battle between Green Bay, because we don't know what they're going to be able to do as the Packers. New quarterback now, no more Rodgers, a lot of young players on that offense, a lot of uncertainty, really.
Yeah.
Jordan Love, he's shown glimpses of being really good, but that's just glimpses. That's just a play here and a play there. Let's see if he can do it all season. And that's because of that uncertainty. I got to feel like Green Bay is going to slide maybe on the bottom. Mm-hmm. And then I feel like it's going to be a fight between Minnesota, Detroit, and Chicago for that number one spot.
Yeah.
Don't be surprised if it's Detroit, though.
Yeah. Oh, I know. And Don, he wants to slam Goff. Just like I said, it's kind of got that stigma you talked about. Last year, he threw for 65%. 29 touchdowns and 7 INTs. So that was pretty. Anybody out there with a problem at quarterback for their team would love to have a guy like that doing that for them. Yeah, for their offense. And that's the key. He was able to not have the turnovers, be able to produce, and even like you said, they were number one for a while. They still finished 5th in the NFL in overall offense. Defensive side of the ball, they were dead last. They were just about at the end. And hence they go and try and help that out in the draft to help burst that defense up, to try and keep it out, because you saw that in games, that's where they kind of lacked, because they were able to put up those points, but then the defense would give up the points back, and they just didn't have enough to compete with some of those high caliber teams.
Right, yeah.
To get it done, but they were there. All right, the same question I guess I have to hold up for the NFC South here. As we move on to the South, the NFC South, now that no more Tom Brady, Tampa Bay, and all this nonsense here. It's kind of now an even slate, you would think, with the Carolina Panthers now drafting their quarterback. They've got C.J. Stroud that they're probably going to end up being a starter. He's set with the number ones now in camp. In Atlanta, trying to figure out what they're doing, too. It's a situation. And so it looks like they're in the right turn, but kind of building in a sense, too, because they all finished with the same record in this division. So this is another tight division that's going to be close. But with the addition of Derek Carr to the Saints, I've kind of got to give the Saints the nod here, especially with the weaponry that they still have with their Chris Olave, and they still have now a healthy Mike Thomas and things like that. Michael Thomas, I'm sorry.
Get it right, Jim.
Yeah, I know. Sorry. But and still, Cam Jordan on defense and guys like that. So they still probably now that next tier of team right behind where Tampa Bay, because Tampa Bay's they got a lot of stuff to figure out too. If they're going to be running out Kyle Trask out there, so. Now's the time. Tampa Bay, they go and get their guy, with Derek Carr, again, who's been pretty good here for the Raiders and pretty consistent, not really killing them with turnovers. So this is probably the best team that he's probably had in a while, except for a couple of years with the Gruden here with the Raiders.
Yeah, the Saints come marching in, right, with Derek Carr, and this couldn't be a more perfect fit for Carr, for the organization. And you're going to team this guy up with a very deadly and young deep threat that is Chris Olave, on top of having now returning Michael Thomas, once again, a former Pro Bowl wide receiver, a guy that is a very physical presence. And you have Juwan Johnson at tight end. You have Adam Troutman as the backup tight end. You have a lot of weapons on that field. And to be honest, this offensive line that Derek Carr is going to be getting the snap behind here is one of the best offensive lines in football. Like, they are superior to a lot of other teams in that aspect. And you have, obviously, there's a little bit of a concern right now with Kareem Hunt. Mm-hmm. Or, I mean, not Kareem Hunt.
Alvin Kamara.
Alvin Kamara. Mm-hmm. But that we have to wait and see how that all ends up. he's also another player that's involved in a court case and is trying to figure things out. And the team's not really sure if he's going to return right away. So again, we bring that up and it's like, it kind of segues into free agency. And could the Saints probably, as an insurance, sign another running back, a guy that kind of fits their offense here. So Kareem Hunt is possible there. So, I think overall the Saints offense is going to be amazing. And that's all they needed was quarterback. So defensively, they are stout already on defense. They've improved that side of the ball again this offseason. So there's no doubt in my mind that the Saints are one of the favorites for that division, if not the favorite.
Mm-hmm. Donald's here on the comments. He says, DJ Moore is not a wide receiver 1. Come on, Joe. He's 6 feet. Then he
doesn't
says,
matter it doesn't matter by height, bro. It's about production.
Yeah, and then he says, Joe, if you praise Carr, I'm done. LOL.
Well, you're done.
It looks like you might be done, but
because I'll tell you right now,
but look at the quarterbacks in that
really
division even right now. At least at this point, he's a veteran with that team. There's still, again, I talk about easy bake oven ready. They're kind of done ready. And this division right now, at this point where they are, I think they're ready. You know what I mean? If you got a young quarterback, you got to fit in the mix, and make some things happen, possibly Carolina. And Atlanta did a lot of cool stuff out there. But, again, if they're going all gung-ho with Ritter here, there might be a little bit of growing pains and things. So, and then, like I said, Tampa Bay, they're going to figure out a lot of weird different situations here, especially as their aging wide receivers are going to go down, and they're going to want out. And things like that. So you're going to see that team start to dismantle in the next season or two. So it's going to get crazy there. So that's why I think that the Saints have the best opportunity to go in and take this division.
I would say this. They have the best opportunity for sure. But the little things that Atlanta has done, I think that they're going to be a surprise team this year. They've done a tremendous job of revamping that defensive secondary. They've added some pieces there where it's going to definitely give them a better chance defensively to get after quarterbacks, to stop the passing, and then offensively. As much as I'm not a fan of Desmond Ridder as being the starter, they're going to give him a shot because they drafted him for a reason. They got to give him at least a legitimate shot to see where he truly is in his development. But the other thing that they've done a good job of is they've surrounded him with premier offensive weapons. So they have a good offensive line, and then they added all these young offensive weapons. Let's see what Atlanta can do, but it's going to be hinged on how well, obviously, Ridder performs. Because if he struggles, then at what point do you kind of pull the plug? You know what I mean? Like, are you just willing to ride down with the ship, just take it all the way down if it's going really badly, or are you going to try to salvage the season if it goes 4 weeks into the season and you're 0-4 and Ritter's not looking good at all? You know, I mean, do you make a move? Do you sign whatever free agent is available and try to reclaim what is left of the season? Because that's something interesting to also kind of dive into.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So we'll see what happens with that again. And now moving on to the AFC South. I think one of the biggest questions here for this division is probably with the Tennessee Titans here in their quarterback room. I mean, we got Ryan Tannehill, who has been stubborn and saying, listen, I'm not here to train anybody else. I'm here to play. So I don't care about who you bring in, who you got, blah, blah, blah. He said the same thing when they had Malik Willis there too. We saw a little bit of Malik Willis last year, and obviously it wasn't enough to sell the franchise on him because they go out and they draft Will Levis this year. So now you've got this type of two young quarterbacks here with the veteran who's not willing to give his job up. So this training camp, I think, is going to be really interesting for the Tennessee Titans.
Well, Ryan Tannehill, we know he's on his way out. Like it's a foregone conclusion here. Like we know the writing's on the wall for Tannehill. There were rumors about possibly trading him before the draft, even during the draft, and it never happened. And this is the confusing thing for Tennessee is once again an organization that I have to question a lot. I don't question their first round draft pick. I think that's the way to go is Peter Skoronski, like tremendous offensive lineman, and they need a lot of them. They did sign Andre Dillard, formerly of the Eagles. That's going to play left tackle for them. So you see them trying to add and kind of revamp that offensive line, but I still don't think it's enough. The right side is desperately in need. And then if that's the case, how often is your quarterback going to be standing upright? Because the one thing that you haven't done for years is you drafted A.J. Brown years ago, right? Turns out to be a stud, like just an amazing wide receiver, athlete, does it all. And you end up trading him away. When you don't have any replacements, when you don't have any depth, you drafted Treylon Burks in 22, and it's kind of the same receiver. He's a little slower, but he's still bulky and everything. But now you look at the team now, and it's like, well, if you kept A.J. Brown and you drafted Treylon Burks, okay, you're starting to build something. But you traded Brown, you drafted the same type of player, not as dynamic yet anyways, but what else is around him? Nothing. You got a bunch of backup receivers starting right now. That's embarrassing. And I haven't seen them really build anything on offense. We've heard the rumors about Derrick Henry even being traded before the draft, during the draft. Is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? And then it never happened. Yeah. And he's still there. Now, how do you think Derrick Henry feels? Like, he's like, you guys are looking to get rid of me. I'm still here. Like, what does that mean for my future? Like, after this year, or maybe even before week 8, before the trade deadline, he could be dealt. Is this a team really trying to get back to the playoffs or improve themselves? I don't think so. 2 years ago, they were the number 1 seed in the AFC. And then last season, they go from being that to a shell of themselves and lost the division title. Yeah. Now you look at this team now, it's like, okay, you added a couple offensive linemen that you desperately needed. Great. Where's the receivers? Where's the big-time tight ends that you used to have, that you used to rely on in this offense? Like, I'm sorry, they have Chig there, who's a nice young tight end, very fast. I think he could be something for them, but they got to use him the right way. And then defensively, Mike Vrabel has been a tremendous head coach for the Titans, I will say. Good defensive mind. And they've always seemed to kind of kept this, like, a nucleus of defensive players that have always been around, and they've always been solid there. They might have lost a guy or two along the way every single year, but they always managed to find someone else to replace them. And now you have Kevin Byard, who wants to be traded, who wants to be done with this organization. And it's got to make you wonder, as a Tennessee Titan fan, that what is going on in Tennessee right now? Because if you're on the outside looking in like we are, and you're looking at some of the moves that they've done, some of the moves that they haven't done, and you're like, doesn't seem like we're rebuilding. It seems like we're still the same team, or maybe worse. Yeah. You got to rely on Treylon Burks, and then if Byard wants out, there's got to be a reason. Yeah. It's not just about money. Now there's like a little bit of writing on the wall where you're seeing vets now that just want out. So Byard wants out. He's going to be leaving the team eventually. This is his last year on his contract, and I could definitely see, maybe even before week 1, that you're going to see Byard in a different uniform.
Well, yeah, I mean, and this is what I think when players, like we talk about those, they see the window closing. When you made that A.J. Brown trade, you basically said, well, the whole offense runs out of Derrick Henry, so we got him, and we're a run offense anyways. We'll just find so-and-so, plug and play, bang. What's like what other team that Mike Vrabel came from? The New England Patriots.
Patriots, yeah.
You know what I mean? Hey, we'll get it done. We'll plug this guy in. And we saw guys like something like that, like, Kenny Phillips and these other guys catch the ball sporadically last year. But you said we didn't know who was going to get the ball, if they did at all. And the teams in the NFL right now, they're looking to score big. Once they saw teams like the Chiefs and stuff like that able to put up points on you like that, they made changes to try and get that type of an offense too. So where if they're down a little bit, they can come right back into it. And if your main player is the running back and you're limited in time, you're not running the football.
No.
You need to score quick. and it ain't going to be Kenny Phillips and these other no-namer guys. You know what I mean? And this is the problem. And then the fact compounded on top of it, you're drafting quarterbacks in the first, second round, and second round in the next one. But consecutively for 2 years in a row, that tells those other veterans that, oh man, writing's on the wall, windows closing.
It's not even the windows closing. It's that you're investing in the quarterback position twice, 2 times back-to-back years, and they're not even. It's not even like Tennessee traded up this past draft, right? And drafted one of the guys that they thought that they really loved. You know, they settled and said, hey, we're going to wait till the second round. I think he's going to be there. And we took Will Levis.
Right.
Malik Willis, they signed in the third or drafted in the third round. So it's like you're not going after top tier level quarterbacks in the draft to say, okay, yeah, we're preparing for the future. When Tannehill leaves, this is our guy. We took him in the upper tier of the first round, and we're very happy with this pick. And let's go. You drafted 2. Now I'm not saying
take a stab in the
I'm not
dark
taking a
and
stab
get
at Will
value,
Levis.
right?
I'm not taking a stab at Malik Willis. But what I'm saying is the organization. It's almost like they don't have their head on straight. It's almost like they're grasping at straws in desperation to try to have some kind of spark and make something happen and force it to happen. So Will Levis, could he be the answer? Maybe. Malik Willis, this is a guy that they drafted in the third round that was the first quarterback taken that year in the draft that needed 2 to 3 years of development. He's not even getting that, and he's getting brushed off. So here you are once again in the second round. You take Will Levis. If you miss on this quarterback, if Levis does not pan out like you hope he will, then not only did you miss 2 times at quarterback, but now you've just set back your franchise 5 to 10 years because of missing out on those quarterbacks. And also your team is starting to fall apart. Your big cornerstone pieces, like a Derrick Henry, you're already trying to get rid of. And once you do that, the identity of that offense is gone. You have to recreate this offense. You have to figure something else out. So for me, Tennessee to me is still like, it's almost like a rebuild in a sense, but not actually officially announcing it yet. They're like putting it off and like, let's give it a good old try this season, guys. Tennessee's got to wake up. Bottom line, like this is not a good look for Tennessee Titan fans. They definitely can't be happy with what they've able to accomplish yet. It seems like they just keep missing the opportunities. And just 2 years ago, guys, you were the number 1 seed in the playoffs. That says something.
Yeah.
And you to go there and in a couple years span, now you're like, well, maybe we can win the division.
Right. And they're so used to some of these other teams not being very good. You know, Houston did a lot in the offseason. We'll see what happens with them moving forward, but that's not a quick turnaround.
No, they're still rebuilding. Yeah.
But Jacksonville, they were able to flip the switch. You know,
right.
Again, they've got their franchise quarterback there, and Trevor Lawrence right there. Now it seems like that's starting to work together, and they've got the head coach that they needed. You know, Doug Peterson.
A quarterback
Colts,
guru.
They had their window, and now you see what's happening when you don't get your window and stuff. Now you've got a Gardner Minshew in here trying to play quarterback for a team that's been searching for a quarterback for the past, 5 seasons, 6 seasons maybe, or something like that. So they had their opportunities and just had now failed, and now look at what they're doing here. So
yeah, they drafted a quarterback this year, and they're hoping that he's going to pan out. And but here's the problem: is in that situation, like the Indianapolis Colts, you are almost forced to start that rookie right away. You're almost forced to throw him into the fire. He might not be ready, but hey, we drafted him high. We got to play him. Gardner Minshew, can he be a starter? We've seen him show glimpses, but again, different offense, different personnel, and everything. So
at least at this point, like
I don't know. Can Minshew at this point in his career, can he be the guy? Possibly, but again, with that Colts team, like this is a team that still needs help at the tackle position. That still needs help. Receivers are desperate. This is like kind of like Tennessee in a sense, where they haven't really made a strong emphasis on addressing that receiving core, on addressing that right tackle spot, on addressing an upgrade at tight end. All those things. Jonathan Taylor, like he got hurt last year. Okay, he couldn't be a big part of he's coming back healthy. Now, it can't be just him. It can't be him and a backup type of quarterback. It's got to be, you got to shake some things up here. You got to do something. And so for Colts fans, they might be happy with where they're at defensively, but offense is just, if you can't put points on the board, what can you do? You're not going to be able to get a lot of wins that way.
Absolutely. Let's move to the AFC West now. Again, I don't think we have any questions for the Chiefs or anything like that. We've talked about the Raiders a few different times. I think for me, it's the Denver Broncos here to ask a question about, and it's only got to be the fact that they invested that money instantly without knowing what they were getting there with Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
And everybody was happy and excited. Look at the weapons he got and all this other stuff. But they didn't have the head coach. You know what I mean? So now they've got Sean Payton in there and his guys and Joe Lombardi, running the offense too. That's spicy. I like it. There's something different, and they're saying they're noticing differences here in training camp as well. So can the Broncos turn it around just as fast here in this season with the new head coach and things like that, and set Russell Wilson straight here and make a push at this division to where somebody needs to challenge the Chiefs right now because, the Raiders are out of it now,
I don't think it's going to be Denver, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I think Sean Payton, if any coach in this world could make Russell Wilson play better or closer to what Russell Wilson once was, it's him.
Absolutely.
But Sean Payton's offense, you got to have some kind of strength left in your arm. And that's not there with Russell Wilson. So I wonder how this is all going to shake out. Are they going to become like a version of the Patriots with Peyton's innovative play calling, but short to intermediate game that kind of fits Russell Wilson? I kind of see that happening, but I don't think it's going to be anything like Drew Brees back with the Saints, where Sean Payton was not only creative, but Drew Brees could sling it when he needed to. He could throw it way down the football field.
Yep.
So it's going to be different. It's going to be different. Like, I think Denver's going to be improved for sure. I think they're definitely going to have more wins than 5. But again, this is a big change. And so for a first-year coach and a new regime now put in place again, everyone's got to learn new things. This Broncos defense, I don't expect it to be the same. I still think they got very good talent. You know what I mean? So they can adapt. But it's going to be a new defense. It's a new offensive concept. And they have weapons to throw to. It's just, can they all put it all together? I think they'll definitely be better. Like, I honestly think you're going to see the Raiders at the bottom feeders of the division, and most likely have 2 or 3 wins. Denver is going to have more than 5. Obviously, I think they might even get 7 or 8. But as far as them competing with the likes of the Chargers, the likes of the Chiefs, I don't think they're at that level just yet. Maybe 2 years later, maybe like after this season into the next season, when they have like a whole year together, then they'll take a big jump. But as of right now, I think they're still gonna do what they can, and they're gonna compete. Definitely gonna compete. But I think as long as the Chargers and Chiefs are the teams that they are right now, I don't see anybody in the AFC West touching them.
Any concerns or any questions here with the Chargers and what they've got here? Again, always kind of been
I got a question.
Always the bridesmaid, never the bride in this division. You know what I'm saying?
Always, right? And part of that is their head coach. Part of that is because he goes for it on 4th down more than any other coach in the league. Hell, he probably has broken the record for the amount of times that he's gone on 4th down conversions.
Absolutely.
And at terrible situations. At your own 10-yard line, you're going to go for it on 4th and 6.
Yep.
What are you thinking?
Yeah.
And then you
This
don't
is
get
an
it.
arena.
Turnover. Like you just gave them. They're clearly within scoring range already.
Yeah.
Like, these are the decisions that really good coaches like Sean Payton don't make.
Yeah.
They don't do stupid things. And you could say, oh, well, there was this one time that he went for it, both 4th down conversions. We got them both and we scored. Great, but that's not guaranteed. And when you're doing it in critical game situations where this could dictate you win or lose, I'm sorry, I'm going to take the high percentage.
Yeah.
And that's what, like, this Chargers coaching staff, it seems like they're too much into analytics and not enough just straight up X's and O's coaching.
Right, right.
So it's like they're willing to take all these chances because it's like, the analytics say if we go for it at this point in the field on fourth down, we got a 63% chance of getting it. We're going for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like they're just bad decisions because they're looking at numbers too much. I don't know that for sure, but that's just something that I get a feeling for. And that to me is the only thing that's holding the Chargers back.
Right.
Is because they could have easily put away the Raiders and made the playoffs. And instead he went for it on fourth down in his own territory and turned the ball over and gave the Raiders the score to go ahead. And that ended up being the final. They lost because of that decision. Yep. So for me, it's the head coach. He's got to get away more from that fourth down conversion, go mentality and start to look for it in terms of game situations. If your offense is just rolling through a defense and you're at their 30 and you want to go for it on fourth down, go ahead. I got no problems with that. But when you're on your side of the field, you know what I mean, at your 40, at your 30, whatever it is, and you go for it and don't get it, you're turning the ball over and giving them ample opportunity now to drive and score or score right away. So that's my problem.
Analytics is always a problem, I think, with me, is just because, again, there's too many variables because you're talking about human beings in different situations. And you're saying to me now, you're taking that momentum means nothing in a game. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because momentum does a lot.
Oh.
And if you miss that, it sways momentum. And even the momentum that's happening in the game, situational football, and you're going against that depending on what these numbers might say, I think that's just not, managing the game properly.
Right.
But that's always got to be a question for me. We said it multiple times. But all right, now let's finally cover the NFC West here, Joe. Any questions besides, for me at least, I look at this 49ers team and what could have been last year. And we were robbed so much that they even changed the rule now with adding that extra third quarterback to the roster here without losing a spot. And, Brock Purdy says, he's throwing stuff and he's getting healthier. Yep. But what's going to go on with the quarterback situation here? And do they have enough here to get it done here and make that push? Because they added all that personnel last year, made it real far away, and we were kind of robbed to see what might have been. Yeah,
and that's the thing is San Francisco is so dangerous right now. Super talented defense. Now, the one thing that's going to change is D coordinator is going to be different. So you got to wonder, you got all these highly talented defensive players and whatnot, but I don't think, obviously, they're not going to try to change anything up. Right, you don't fix what's not broken, right? They're going to kind of go along and call plays, but it's a different D coordinator, so things could be different in certain situations where he might call a play differently, and that's kind of what we got to wait and see for. But still think they're going to be a very stout defense, a very good top tier type of defense as usual. And then offensively, they're going to be so scary because you mentioned Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy is throwing. We mentioned that a week or two ago about how he's starting to warm up and throw the football. Says he feels good. There's no setbacks or anything like that. So things are looking pretty positive in San Francisco right now. And it looks like it's going to be Brock Purdy as the starter. And so far, as long as there's no new injuries that come up or maybe a strain or something like that for him, they're going to be very cautious with him. They're going to take him very slow and make sure he's 100% when we get to week 1. And I think he's going to be ready to go. I think he's going to be the starter. He's going to be ready to go. And what does that mean for Lance? Lance there. He's on his way out, I think. I think that the Niners as an organization and as a coaching staff recognize, hey, we really think Brock Purdy is our guy. Hands down, he's the quarterback that we've been looking for the future, and Trey Lance is not. And he's not up to speed. He's not executing as much as they would like him to be, but he is healthy right now, and there has been a few teams that have kind of inquired about his services, maybe in a trade, and we'll have to see where this goes. But I think as of right now, the Niners are kind of steadfast and saying, hey, listen, Purdy's our guy. But Trey Lance, if we need him, we have him.
Yeah, absolutely. I think with that division, I mean, the 49ers, even though, again, we've talked about teams that have been kind of poised and ready to win and not a whole lot of questions around them because of the talent that they have around them. That wasn't exactly the question ever. It was just how healthy can those quarterbacks be, mainly Brock Purdy, and get them there. Because if he goes down again and you've got a Trey Lance, we're still, not sold, or haven't seen anything of this guy. So,
well, we haven't seen enough. We've seen a little bit before he got injured. But you tended to see Trey Lance more of a guy like Lamar Jackson, a guy that you would utilize his legs more, wasn't sure if he should throw. And we saw the same thing with Lamar early in his career as a rookie. Wasn't sure if he should let it loose. Couldn't quite make the accurate pass sometimes. And Trey Lance is right there right now, and he still has a huge learning curve to get over. And I feel like that's why the Niners are hesitant to have him as a starter, to give him a shot right away over Purdy. So with this offense, I mean, geez, not only is this team stout all the way around, but the way they finished last year, minus a couple of hiccups and injuries and what have you, like, this is a team that is going to return to playoffs, no doubt about it. I think this is a division that is going to be just between two teams. It's just going to be either Seattle or the Niners themselves. I think those are going to be the only two teams that are going to compete for the division. And San Francisco is so deadly right now, especially obtaining Christian McCaffrey when they did. I mean, that to me was a game changer for them, because everybody was focused on Debo before.
Yeah.
And then Brandon Ayuk was kind of like the unsung hero, so to speak. Like, he would carve up defenses, and everyone's sleeping on him.
Yep.
George Kittle came on strong in the second half of the season. And then here comes McCaffrey. And everyone's like, wait. Is this a cheat code in Madden?
Well, it's like
what's
people
going
are
on?
probably even like, how's the NFL let this trade happen? You know what I mean? What, are you
Should have
kidding
been
me?
denied.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. And you bring up Seattle, and again, there's no real questions for me about this team because, I mean, they were one of those teams last year, I think, that weren't really supposed to be. Nobody expected them to be where they were.
That's what it was.
Again,
because,
to where Geno Smith became like the comeback player of the year.
Right.
And that's always a funny title for me, especially, too, because, that could be offensive if somebody calls me a comeback player when I wasn't really injured or anything like that. And I'm just playing better now, good or whatever. But he really kind of wasn't meant to be that guy there when he stepped up and was the leader. When they made that trade with Denver, got those picks, Drew Lock and Noah Fant. And, they always had their weapons there, too, with DK Metcalf and Lockett. They made something out of nothing. Even that defense started to play, pretty well with losing players here. And that 12th man, I think, made a difference too. And in that home stadium, there's something about it. When last year, when they were playing and they were at a home game, you just had to chalk it up as a victory, and they did it and got it done with the Geno Smith. So this is always kind of that type of team that goes off the path of where, hey, they don't have their franchise quarterback. They're not getting it done. Write him off or whatever. They get a guy that Geno Smith that knows the system, can just make the throws. We just ask him to make the throws when he can. And you had Kenneth Walker III jump on the scene and really work well for them in the running game. And they had something going on, and all he had to do is keep the ball secure, which he did, which he wasn't doing with the Jets back in the day.
Or early on with Seattle.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the thing. Some guys are just late bloomers in the NFL. And it sucks for the teams that draft him, because a lot of times they give up on him before he even reaches, his full capacity in terms of performance. So for Geno, drafted by the Jets, never panned out, was around for a few years, then ends up being a free agent. The Seahawks happened to sign him as a backup, and they're like, oh, well, we'll just work with him because he's fairly young, but he developed under Seattle's umbrella, and he wasn't rushed like he was in New York to play right away and to be the guy. He kind of sat back, he learned a lot, and then developed his own traits and improved to the point where, like, okay, yeah, just like you mentioned, he knows the system, he's very comfortable with everybody, he's a great teammate and all this. He finally gets his chance. and surprises the hell out of everybody. I don't care who you are out there. If you told me that Geno Smith was going to have a year like he did, you're crazy. There's no way no one would believe that. Not even you would believe that. So
No, yeah,
I
we
think
looked at it as a bridge quarterback.
with that in mind, and for him to accomplish what he has, it shocked everybody. And because of his gameplay, though, it turned this team's idea and thought process into, oh, hey, he's not only playing better, he's not only playing good for us, but he's playing way better than we thought. Because even the Seattle Seahawks organization was like, whoa, we got to re-sign this guy. We can't let him walk.
Yeah.
He's our starter now.
Yep.
And good for Geno, good for all the hard work that he's put into it. And not only with this kind of bump now he's the starter, he's the legit guy, signs a 3-year deal extension. But this team now, a team that we thought was going to fall off the rails. We thought that, okay, they're going to have to try to find a quarterback eventually, so they're going to kind of scale back. We've also heard slight rumors of DK Metcalf maybe wanting to be traded. You know what I mean? All these different things.
Yep.
And here they are, playoff caliber team, very young on offense, on defense, and they just add more studs after the draft too.
Yep.
Like, this is a team that is not only, they didn't even do a rebuild. They just retooled.
Just retooled quick.
And
just like that.
with draft picks that they hit on all of them, and some free agents that they managed to obtain, and now here they are once again, dangerous as ever, and they are going to compete for this division. So the Niners better keep their eyes open on this team. It's going to be a battle for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And then where you look at a team like the Rams, we knew they were going to start paying their dues because of what they had invested to get that Super Bowl.
Yep.
I thought it would be this year. And it came to us a year early in last year's performance because it was absolutely putrid. And to where now, again, you have, a guy like Matthew Stafford, and Cooper Kupp now just reworked his contract to get another guy signed and in there. But they are not going to be very competitive again, and they started losing more stars as they were going on and now having to pay their dues again, not having the draft picks, invested all that time and money in some of these other veteran players to get that Super Bowl championship, and now taking a downward turn. And I'm really quite honestly surprised that Sean McVay decided to come back because he had the opportunity to walk away. He had TV deals lined up to go, other things, and he decided to come back.
Yeah, a lot of people thought that, and it was being heavily reported too, that they're like, oh, be prepared. He's probably going to take a year off at least.
Yeah.
Take a year off, come back to the NFL, and who knows? Maybe he was even contemplating, he's like, hey, maybe I should jump off the boat now and, kind of reassess, do whatever I got to do outside of football, and then come back to football because he's still so young.
Yeah.
He could definitely come back and head coach for someone else or maybe the same team. But man, I mean, all the changes that have taken place up to this point, like you mentioned, the departure of a lot of players because we knew that was going to happen. Yep. To this point where they are still kind of rebuilding in a sense because they've lost so much talent. Now it's trying to replace the talent with no draft picks, with lack of money to sign players, and it's really hindered them. So it's like this Rams team, we saw this coming and we knew it was going to happen. But when you see a team like win a Super Bowl, you're like, they'll be fine. They'll figure it out. Like they shouldn't be too hurt after they lose this player or that player. But man, did they fall off way fast. So for the Rams, like, again, they're going to compete. They're going to do what they can. But honestly, like, there's no chance that they have no chance in this division.
Absolutely. So, I mean, do you have any more questions to ask out there about you guys in the chat? I appreciate you guys out there that have been hanging out with us.
Yeah.
Donald, it's good seeing you again. It's been
he's
a long
done.
time since
He's been done.
He's been done since you praised
we talked
Carr,
about the Saints.
and then I even praised Carr too on top of it. So he was probably twice.
I got
done.
one other question.
What's up?
I got a question about the Cardinals.
Okay.
And I want to ask, I wish I could ask the organization this question because was it worth it? And the reason why I ask that is, was it worth getting rid of Cliff Kingsbury and staying with Kyler Murray?
Yeah.
Because we've heard of a lot of articles come out. We've heard a lot of rumors about Arizona and how they're a little unstable. They chose Kyler Murray over Cliff Kingsbury, and we've also heard that Kyler Murray is a little bit of a diva, is toxic even in the locker room.
Mm-hmm.
If these reports and rumors are true, you chose a out of control player.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he's a quarterback. I get it. He's okay. It's tough to give that up, but I'm not saying give up on him, but maybe you should have forced him to listen. And now you move on. You got a new coaching staff now, all new again. Everybody's got to learn. Not everybody's going to stay. We've also know that Arizona is in desperate need of offensive line help. A lot of guys retired on that offensive line this past offseason. So I'm not sure. Was it really worth moving on from your head coach and the staff that you had because of Kyler Murray? Or is it going to be kind of like it's just going to be a record playing over and over in Arizona? Because as long as Kyler Murray's there, we've also seen him not be the elite quarterback that they drafted. They were hoping that they were getting a guy that could do everything. Mm-hmm. Has tremendous mobility, has the arm, has accuracy. Well, sometimes his accuracy isn't there. Mm-hmm. And now on top of that, if he does in fact have a bad attitude towards the organization or towards certain players or coaches, whatever, that's not a good thing to have at that position, especially.
Mm-hmm.
So by choosing Kyler Murray over, let's make them work it out. Like, keep the same coaching staff, make them work it out. This is all, everybody knows each other. But now they're also moving on from Hopkins.
Mm-hmm.
You know, now there's no more Hopkins factor. That was his favorite target. Who's going to step up? Hollywood Brown? Marquise Brown?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Mm-hmm.
He's not Hopkins at all.
Mm-hmm.
So now Murray's got to find a new favorite. Murray's got to probably do a lot more. He's going to have a lot more pressure on him. So I just want to know from Arizona, was it worth it?
Yeah. And that's the thing. You saw last year, too, where it was an opportunity for them to move forward, because the season before you saw them make the playoffs and you saw Kyler Murray go off into a shell, and get pressured and make a lot of mistakes and not really take a lot of the blame, I think, for it as well.
No, he didn't in the presser.
I mean? And
then last year, hardly played. He was injured.
Yeah.
I mean, and then everyone's blaming Cliff Kingsbury. Well, how come we're not doing good? What do you want the guy to do? He doesn't even have a starting quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. And they've always said they only go as far as what Kyler Murray can take him to and stuff. And he hasn't done a whole lot. And like you said, now the injury thing. So now you look at his body. You're like, oh, does he have the frame to take the hits and things like that? And it was so bad that the organization that the GM even just resigned too, with things.
Yeah,
he had other personal
confusing.
situations going on, but it looked like he was in a trend of firing, but then all of a sudden he came out like, no, I'm just going to walk away. I'm resigning.
Yeah. And you're right. It probably was more medical driven, you know what I mean? Because we knew that he wasn't in the best stance, in his medical life, but it's a lot of stress too at that position. So maybe that had something to do with it. So this is the best for him.
Right.
And again, I will say this, Steve Keim, as the GM of Arizona, did a phenomenal job. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't have anything bad to say about that guy, because he did everything in his power, whether it be signing or trading for someone, or even his draft. His draft picks were pretty good for the most part. He had a great career. Now, no more Steve Keim. So it's another big question mark with this new GM. Is he going to be able to live up to expectations at that position, or is he not going to do as well? And then this team again is going to be suffering.
Right, and a Cliff Kingsbury that brought Kyler Murray in because they knew each other, knew the offense, how to make the best out of that quarterback.
Yeah.
And you fired him, so that obviously he couldn't get it done. So who do you expect that can do it? There's not a lot of other guys out there, and that's what you're saying. Was it worth it? We'll see. So that's it. That's the biggest questions here for this episode here. We got into it, and
a little bit.
Yeah,
right?
We're gonna have more as the training camps are gonna get started, and we're gonna see more of these things happen. The holdouts and stuff like that. See who will truly hold out and how long. Because again, they say it doesn't work in the realm for the player anymore. Because again, they start to get fined as they go and things like that. So how long can you take?
It depends how much you care.
Back? Yeah.
I mean, really, like we've
but-
seen it work before for the player.
Yeah.
Actually, we've
Yeah.
seen Le'Veon Bell
Yeah.
for the Steelers. I'm not coming back. Nope. You're gonna have to trade me or cut me so I can go somewhere. And he stuck to his guns.
Yeah,
I
he
was
did.
surprised. Usually, it does not happen that way. Usually,
Right.
guys buckle under the pressure. Like, hey, I don't want to pay these fines anymore. I just want my money. I'm gonna come play and finish it out and
Yep.
be done with it. But sometimes guys are just hard-headed enough
Yeah.
and don't care about the money, and,
Yep.
and they're willing to do whatever they need to do.
Yep, absolutely. So we'll follow all that throughout the camps and things. And
Yeah, I can't wait to get started.
Yeah,
Hey,
absolutely.
If you lasted this long, which I highly doubt, but if you did,
It's like-
or if you're just kind of popping in to see what's going on, listen, we are Football on the Know. In the know, on the go with you. Anywhere you get your podcasts,
Hashtag
hit
know-it-alls.
Spotify, iTunes, you name it. Drop a follow there. Bring us along with your daily journey. And as well, head over to YouTube to help us grow this football community of ours. Hit the subscribe button there on our channel. Also hit the notification bell to let you guys know when we go live. And as well, you can follow us on Facebook.
All right, that's it
Thanks.
for us. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and we will see you next time.
Join us next week from 8 till 10 Wednesday night for more Football on the Know with Jim and Joe.